Hello, this is Gallifreyan Jedi speaking, and I would like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. And for this month, the month of October, my topic will be on my review of Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. This is a topic I promised to all my subscribers, so with no further ado, let's jump in and get started. I'm going to start this review with a reflection of my review of Star Wars Rebels Season 1. This will probably be helpful if you haven't seen my, if you haven't watched my review. I encourage you to watch my review of Season 1, but let me just give you a review if you're started with watching this video first on my review of Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. Okay. In reflecting on my previous review of Season 1 of Star Wars Rebels, I recount on how I gave that first season of the second CGI Star Wars television series a bad review. I did not like Rebels on how it began, for it was very slow and boring, quote unquote, I say in my opinion, as compared to this first CGI Star Wars television series, which was Star Wars The Clone Wars. As a matter of fact, I felt that Star Wars Rebels was very antithetical to the excitement that was in Star Wars The Clone Wars. I felt that with the first season of Rebels had very dull plots and the overarching storyline was going nowhere. Plus, I did not like the idea that the entire first season of Rebels took place mostly on the planet Lothal, for I felt that in a franchise that has a galaxy wide of planets and moons to visit and explore, that it was kind of an existentially cheap way to have it take place only on one planet. I had compared it to imagining a season of Star Trek where the crew of the Starship Enterprise goes to the planet Vulcan and stays there for the entire season instead of exploring the galaxy. If you remember, I did compare that Star Wars Rebels first season to that concept that I just compared with Star Trek first season of hypothetical season of Star Trek. But in conclusion, I decided I was going to give Star Wars Rebels a second chance with Season 2 in order to decide if I was going to continue watching the series or give up the ghost, no pun intended, with the series. Well, the second season of Rebels did have a major impact on me, to which I am now going to give my review of. Okay, pretty much I just laid out. If you want more information on what I've reviewed and talked about in my Star Wars Rebels Season 1, I encourage you to watch that video. But with no further ado, I don't want to spend too much time on Season 1 because I've already done that review. I want to now jump in and talk about Season 2. So, let's start off with my second part. What I liked about Star Wars Rebels Season 2, I actually did like. It did give me that impression. Now keep in mind, remember, I said I was going to give Rebels Season 2, that was going to be my second chance for Rebels. If I didn't like it, that's it. I was going to stop watching it. But it turns out that I did like it, and I am continuing to watch it. And this is what I do like about it. In reflecting on Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels, the show has improved multi-fold. And if I did not know better, I would believe that Lucasfilm had actually heard my critique for Season 1 of Rebels and sought to improve the series according to the suggestions and direction, that I suggested that it should go in to make the quality of the series on par with Star Wars The Clone Wars series. But of course, I know that can't be true, for unless they watch my video of my review of Season 1 of Rebels, which I highly doubt they have, then there is no way they could know, excuse me, there's no way that, then there is no way they could have known my thoughts and opinions on Rebels. Plus, even if they did hear my critique of Season 1 of Rebels, why should they even care what I would have to say or what I think of Rebels? Because I am a quote-unquote working-class nobody and expendable as to truly caring of what my opinion is. So it begs the question, why did Rebels go from the first season, a show that was boring and going nowhere in the overarching story plot, to much improved series in their second season? The only thing I can think of that makes sense is that the multi-mass fan base of Star Wars must have also given a similar review of the first season of Rebels, and Lucasfilm must have taken the masses seriously and changed the series as to what it should be for season 2 of Rebels. So, what has changed with season 2 of Rebels that has made the series go from a pedantically dull series to an exciting series that has just about climbed to the quality of the Clone Wars? Well, first of all, as I was suggesting that the direction of the series should go in, that the crew of the Ghost is primarily in space flying with a fleet of other ships that are part of the rebellion against the Galactic Empire. Not to mention that almost each week they visit and explore a different planet in the galaxy, and only return to Lothal to visit it for a mission, which is definitely a huge improvement. The Ghost crew meet rebel cells who are forming the Alliance to Restore the Republic. Keep in mind, the Alliance to Restore the Republic is the official organization that started under the characters of Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, and of course, which is not canon now because Garm Bel Ibli, he also was the third who started the Alliance, of course, it's not canon now according to Disney, but in the original canon with the expanded universe, he was the third person who helped start the Alliance to Restore the Republic. But that was the official organization of the Rebel Alliance that fought against the Galactic Empire in episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars, the Star Wars movies. But let me repeat that. The Ghost crew meet rebel cells who were forming the Alliance to Restore the Republic as they form an alliance with them in their struggle against the Galactic Empire. And one of the best qualities of the second season of Rebels is seeing characters from the Star Wars prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, in the Clone Wars series. And keep in mind that I mentioned all three of them, the prequels, the original trilogy, and also the Clone Wars. Rebels should do is it should have the continuity and bring the continuity of the entire saga all together. So there's a consistent continuity flowing through the entire series or through the entire franchise, which the second season of Rebels certainly did, especially by the characters. Now let me list the characters that we do see in season 2, such as Lando Calrissian, Bail Presto Organa, Captain Rex, Hondo Anaka, Ahsoka Tano, Darth Maul, Princess Leia, and of course Darth Vader. Just to give you an overview, well, everybody knows who Lando Calrissian is, and Bail Organa they should know from the prequels and also the Clone Wars series. Captain Rex definitely from the Clone Wars series. Hondo Anaka, the pirate from the Clone Wars series, and of course Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars series. Darth Maul, obviously, both from the prequels, the Phantom Menace, and also the Clone Wars. Princess Leia from the original trilogy, and of course Darth Vader from the original trilogy. Or actually, Darth Vader was actually in the prequel trilogy, Revenge of the Sith. But anyway, moving on, and not to mention that and this is something I had to mention here, and not to mention the introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn, which when announced I was thrilled beyond measure. But since he is introduced in season 3 of Rebels, I will wait until I do my review of that season to talk about Thrawn. So I'm not going to comment too much more about Thrawn, but I'll wait till I do my review of season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. But trust me, over the summer when I found out, saw the trailers for season 3 of Star Wars Rebels and saw Grand Admiral Thrawn was going to be part of season 3, I was thrilled with all, I was already pleased with season 2, but that really made my day when I found that out. I was thrilled beyond measure to find out that Grand Admiral Thrawn was going to be in season 3. But anyway, that's just an overview of what I liked about season 2 of Rebels. And what I would like to do now is spend the rest of the time talking about some notable episodes of Star Wars Rebels Season 2. I guess you can say they're my favorites, somewhat my favorites, but I picked them out less because they're my favorites, but more so because I think that they're significant to the overarching story plot of the Star Wars saga, and also fitting in with the continuity of the entire saga, the entire franchise. So anyway, I thought that would be a good idea to spend the rest of the time in this review reflecting on those episodes. So let's start off with the first one, the hour-long season premiere of Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels, called the Siege of Lothal. That was the story, the Siege of Lothal, which is an hour long, considered part 1, part 2. This, they're usually half-an-hour episodes. But anyway, moving on, let's jump in and talk about the Siege of Lothal. Darth Vader starts an impressive campaign on the planet Lothal in order to expose and find the rebels and the remaining Jedi who supported them. If you remember, which I did give a high credit, even though I didn't like Season 1 of Rebels, if you remember, I did give a high praise to the season finale of Season 1 of Rebels, in which Kanan, the character of Kanan, he fought against the Inquisitor, and actually killed the Inquisitor, so the Inquisitor is wiped out. So now, as we enter into Season 2, we see Darth Vader now a much more dangerous opponent, a dangerous foe, because we all know who he is and what role he has to play in the saga. He's a much more dangerous and powerful opponent to this small band of rebels of the Ghost Crew. So he gets introduced in this. The crew of the Ghosts start to join other rebel cells, but they have disagreements on their role within the wider movement of the rebellion. So they get introduced. Like I said, they're now out there. The Ghost and its crew are flying and meeting other cells of the Rebel Alliance, or the formation of the Rebel Alliance. Maybe it's not called the Rebel Alliance at this point, or the Alliance to Restore the Republic, but they are meeting other rebel cells, the greater rebel cells that are forming to fight against the Galactic Empire. And they're meeting them, but they're not quite sure if they want to join them full time or just help them on certain missions, but stay amongst them, stay on their own, to basically stay privately by themselves to do their own campaigns, not get fully involved. And that's what they're debating at this point in the episode. Okay, the situation is even more complicated when Minister Maketh Tua, if I'm pronouncing it right. I apologize for any mispronunciations. Sometimes I do. I have dyslexia, so maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. But anyway, let me not focus on that and continue to move on. Fearing punishment for failing to neutralize the Lothal rebels, tries to defect to them in order to escape Vader, often to reveal the truth behind why the Emperor wants the planet. But, excuse me for a second, Vader sabotages, again, Tua's shuttle and murders him when it explodes, while framing the rebels for the act. Very perfect strategy, or almost perfect strategy, shall I say. The crew of the ghost ship tried to flee, but Vader confronts them and injures Kanan and Sabine, and nearly killing Ezra. The crew of the Ghost escape off Lothal with the help of Lando Calrissian. Again, here we see Lando show up in this first episode, the premiere of Season 2, helping the Ghost crew smuggling the crew off-world. Darth Vader pursues them, destroying a lot of the rebel ships along the way, and Ahsoka Tano finally confronts Vader for the first time and is horrified to find out that Darth Vader used to be Anakin Skywalker, her former master. Later, Ahsoka joins the crew of the Ghost as they join forces with other rebel cells in a wider war against the Empire. Vader later informs Emperor Palpatine of Ahsoka's existence, as the Emperor gives orders for Vader defying the crew of the ghost ship by initiating 2 more Inquisitors, shall we say. He sends out 2 more Inquisitors to find the ghost crew, especially since Vader discovered Ahsoka's existence. Imagine the horror that Ahsoka Tano had felt or had experienced for the first time when she first encountered Darth Vader, only to learn that that was the precious master that she really looked up to in the Clone Wars series, if you remember, if you've seen the Clone Wars series. So that would kind of fall short. If you haven't seen the Clone Wars series, you wouldn't know that relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka. But anyway, you can see the results of that. At the end of that story, that hour-long premiere, the Ghost Crew decided to join them full-time, the other Rebel cells full-time, and in order to help them fight a wider war against the Empire. But anyway, let's moving on. I combined 2 episodes together, and I'll tell you why. It has everything to do with Captain Rex, the next 2 stories, and this is actually the next 2 stories in the canon. I mean, right after the premiere, the hour-long premiere, these are the next 2 stories in line. The 2 I'm referring to are the Lost Commanders and Relics of the Old Republic. Let's discuss the Lost Commanders. Now keep in mind, I remember the last Star Wars convention, the last Celebration convention in California that I went to, Celebration 7 or Celebration Anaheim Celebration. Dave Filoni had mentioned that he was going to try to incorporate as many characters from the Clone Wars series into Rebels to bring continuity, and also to interest people like myself, fans like myself, who are fans of the Clone Wars and were disappointed that the Clone Wars was canceled for Rebels. So he did that to get fans like us, who are fans of the Clone Wars series, interested in Rebels, which he did a pretty good job of doing. But anyway, let me move on. I'm going to talk. The first one I'm going to talk about is let's talk about the Lost Commanders, because in this we've seen the clone cadets, including Captain Rex, finally returns, and he's a fan favorite, Captain Rex from the Clone Wars series. Okay. Having barely escaped total destruction of the Rebel Cell Phoenix Squadron by Darth Vader, Ahsoka Tano sends the Ghost Crew to locate a former military commander somewhere in the Selos system, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right again, who has knowledge of useful hideouts in the Outer Rim. The crew discover that the commander to be the former clone trooper Captain Rex. Hooray, Captain Rex does return, accompanied by Commander Wolf and Clone Commando Gregor. Kanan is immediately hostile due to the clone's role in Order 66. Now keep in mind, this would be natural. When Ahsoka takes the Ghost Crew to it's the planet Selos, and they meet up with the clones there, Kanan is automatically taken back and kind of reluctant. Well, first of all, frightened of them, but reluctant to even have any dealings with them because of Order 66. In Order 66, all the clone commandos and all the clone generals turned on the Jedis and massively, in a genocidal way, murdered all the Jedi Masters and most of the other Jedi Knights, except for a handful that did survive. They did survive that Holocaust of Order 66. So he was kind of reluctant he was hostile and reluctant to deal with the clones. Although Rex claims they've removed their brain chips. If you've seen Season 6 of the Lost Mission episodes of the Clone Wars, they did go into the fact that at the creation, Palpatine, through Count Dooku, had ordered the Kamonians, if I'm pronouncing them right, to put a chip into each of the clones' brains. So when Palpatine planned, when he gave the Order 66, it would overwhelm their brain to follow that order. And the order was to kill the Jedi, wherever they were. But Captain Rex and his crew had claimed that they found out about that brain chip, and they removed them, because there was some clone commandos and clone generals who basically did not turn on their masters, who did not turn on the Jedi Masters or the Jedi Knights and kill them. And when we meet up with Captain Rex, also, let me finish this before I move on. So we do know that not all of the clones obeyed Order 66. A lot of them, like Captain Rex, had taken out his, and those he was serving under, took out their brain, the chip in the brain, to control their minds with Order 66, and they did not turn on they were still faithful to the Jedi. But the rest of them, which still had the brain chip in their brain, followed the orders of Order 66 and killed the Jedi Knights and the Jedi Masters and the Jedi Knights. Turned on their Jedi Masters and killed them, murdered them, and that's why Kanan was very hostile and reluctant to deal with Captain Rex and his crew. But Captain Rex, like I said, they removed their brain chips, and so they still remain loyal to the Jedi, and were not loyal to they figured out what was going on with the Galactic Empire, and they still remained to the rebel cells and to the Jedi, and they made that known. And when we meet up with Captain Rex and his crew, you can see that they've aged. And if anybody's questioning, why did they age? Because you see he has gray and white in his beard, and he looks older. Well, the reason is because of that growth inhibitor that was put into. The only one that didn't receive the growth inhibitor, the only clone that didn't receive, was Boba Fett, if you remember from Attack of the Clones, because Jango Fett wanted to raise a son by cloning himself, but not giving him any inhibitors or giving him any growth accelerators or anything like that. Excuse me, that's the difference, not an inhibitor, but a growth accelerator. And Boba Fett was the only one who didn't receive that. But all the other clones received that, because they wanted to raise them clone them from the time that they were like a fetus or an embryo and a fetus, and get them to adulthood, to the year age 20, and half the time, rather than let them grow naturally, which would have taken 20 years. They wanted to do it in 10 years, which that's how they did that. So naturally, the past 20, the 20 years have passed since the time of the Clone Wars and time of Revenge of the Sith, the last time that we see the clones, like Captain Rex and the other clones. But they've aged twice as fast as a normal human so it's 20 years, it's 40 years. They've aged 40 years plus 20. So technically, even though that they would be 30 years old, they're actually 60 years old as far as their body age. Even though they're technically 30 years old from the time of their birth, from the time they were cloned, to the time that they're where they are now in the Rebel series. In actuality, their bodies are 60 years old, as that's how much they've grown since that time, which means they probably will have a very short lifetime. But anyway, I'm going too far off the path. let's get back to the basics. Ezra negotiates with Rex for information relating to the potential bases. In return, Gregor enlists them for a hunt by using Zeb as bait to catch an elusive jupa, that's some kind of animal, hunt for that particular animal. With the hunt successful, Rex holds up his end of the deal, but Sabine discovers that Wolf betrayed the Ghost Crew's location to the Empire. He, unfortunately, even though he was one of the clones as part of Rex's crew, he became a traitor. A skirmish with the Imperial probe damages the Phantom shuttle, and the crew is temporarily stranded with the clones waiting for an Imperial assault. And that was the end of the Lost. That was what happened with the Lost Commanders. Now let's discuss the relics of the Old Republic. The Empire tracks the Lothal rebels to Celios. Admiral Constantine and Agent Kallus arrive at the Celios system to capture the Jedi. Rex gives the Lothal rebels a data chip containing Old Republic bases in the Outer Rim. Ezra tries to persuade the clones to join the rebellion, but Rex and the clones instead offer to delay the Empire so the Lothal rebels can escape. Agent Kallus commands the clones to hand over the rebels, but when Rex refuses, Kallus arrives with 3 AT-ATs, and that was pretty neat, because now we're into the era of the Galactic Empire and the Rebellion, which is the original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6. So we see the technology of AT-ATs and other, Star Destroyers and stuff like that being used. Taking advantage of a sandstorm and the Force, Kanan, Ezra, and the clones used their AT-TEs. Okay, remember, AT-ATs stand for all-terrain. Give me a second here to remember this. It's all-terrain. All-terrain transport. It's an all-terrain. I'll have to look. I can't believe that I'm forgetting. This is such a shame. Such a shame that I'm forgetting, because I remember what all these AT-ATs and AT-ST and AT-TEs. I remember all what they were for. Maybe all-terrain attack transport or something. I'll have to look that up again. But Ezra and the clones have an AT-TE. And they use a main gun to destroy one of the AT-ATs. Meanwhile, Admiral Constantine is summoned away by Darth Vader. And instead of meeting him, the Admiral meets fifth brother, who claims that he will succeed where Kallus and Constantine have failed. The Lothal rebels, now keep in mind, fifth brother is one of the two new Inquisitors that the Emperor has sent out looking for the Jedi. Okay, the Admiral meets fifth brother, who claims that he will succeed where Kallus and Constantine have failed. The Lothal rebels prepare to leave on the Phantom, but Ezra is unwilling to leave Rex and the clones behind. Kanan, Ezra, and Zeb commandeer one of the AT-ATs and turn its weapons on Kallus's AT-AT, which Rex destroys with a critical hit. Kallus flees the battle on a speeder. Hera returns to pick up the clones and the Ghost Crew, returning to the rebel flotilla. The Lothal rebels, the rebel flotilla being the fleet, the rebel fleet, that I spoke about earlier, about them being in space, meeting other rebel cells and flying with the rest of other rebel fleets. The rebel fleet, I mean. The Lothal rebels and Rex reunite with Ahsoka. So pretty much that covers both the episodes of The Lost Commanders and Relics of the Old Republic. Moving on, as we move on, give me just 1 second. The next one is Always Two There Are. Okay. and I'll tell you the reason why. Let's talk about what's happening in this episode, but I'll explain why I picked this one as one of the distinctive episodes of the season. Zeb, Sabine, and Chopper, with Ezra volunteering himself to avoid Kanan and Rex, head out to an Old Republic medical base in search of vital medical supplies, only to be encountered by the seventh sister and the fifth brother. The seventh sister captures Ezra and interrogates him about the whereabouts of Ahsoka Tano, while Sabine is also captured by the fifth brother. Zeb and Chopper eventually rescue them, and they all barely escape the Inquisitors and head back to the Rebel fleet, where Ezra pointedly questions Kanan about the extra Inquisitors. And the reason why I mention this as an honorable episode for the season 2 is because I thought that even better than the first Inquisitor that we see in season 1, the seventh sister and the fifth brother are pretty scary, pretty vicious villains, I thought. And because of the sinister nature and how good and scary these characters are, threatening these characters are, I thought that would make my honorable mention list for season 2. So let's move on to the next one, Wings of the Master. Phoenix Squadron tries to break in Imperial blockade in order to provide food supplies to those who need it, but their transport is destroyed and the mission fails. Hera is then tasked to go to the planet whose atmosphere is very difficult to fly in to get the ship being built by a Mon Calamari that can break the blockade. After nearly crashing her shuttle, Hera manages to convince the Mon Calamari to let her pilot the ship, called the Blade Wing. With the Blade Wing's firepower, Hera manages to single-handedly destroy one of the Imperial blockade ships, allowing the Ghost to break the blockade and deliver the needed supplies. Now, the reason why I have this as one of my honorable mention episodes for season 2 is because of the continuity. I remember long before the Rebels and also the Clone Wars, I remember reading the Expanded Universe, books and stuff like that in the Expanded Universe, and they had the race of the Mon Calamari. They were the ones who designed and created the B-wing fighters, which in this the ship that they had just created, the Mon Calamari, had created, that Hera had was allowed to fly. It was called the Blade Wing. Get it? The Blade Wing, B-wing. Blade Wing is B-wing. That's how the Blade Wings got the B-wing terminology. So the Rebel Alliance force had primarily 4 different types of single fighter ships. They had the A-wings, which go back a ways, even probably goes back to even closer to the Clone Wars. You have the B-wings, which the Mon Calamari had created. That's the most recent kind of fighter ship. You have the X-wings, and then you have the Y-wings. Y-wings go back, and somewhat the X-wings go back somewhat closer to the Clone Wars as well. But the Y-wings definitely go back to the Clone Wars. But they're all used. Those 4 types of ships are used as single fighters against by the Rebels against the Galactic Empire. And that's why I had mentioned Wings of the Master as one of the honorable mention episodes for season 2. Let's go on to the next one, the Honorable Ones. The Ghost crew receive a tip about Imperial activity around the planet Geonosis and go to investigate, only to find the planet completely devoid of life and evidence of a large weapon having been constructed in orbit. When the crew boards one of the abandoned construction modules, they are ambushed by Agent Callus. Most of the crew is able to escape back to the ship, but Zeb is forced to take an escape pod. Callus pursues Zeb into the pod, which gets damaged during their struggle, and the pair crash land on one of the Geonosis ice moons. Callus's leg is injured in the crash, and he and Zeb are forced to work together to survive by fending off hostile monsters and climbing out of the cave they are trapped in. During this, Callus admits to Zeb that he respects Lasets as warriors. Keep in mind, Lasets, if I'm pronouncing that right, that's the name of the race of Zeb. Zeb Orleus. I apologize for any mispronunciation in his name. But I remember talking about him when I did a character overview of Rebels when it first began a couple years ago. So we get here that Callus does respect. He does respect the race of Lasets as warriors, though he has a dislike of them due to his first squad being wiped out by a Laset. He also reveals he was forced to give the execution orders on Lasan. I guess that's their planet. That's their home planet, and he did not agree with the Empire's decision to exterminate the Lasets. Upon reaching the surface, they activate their emergency transponder. The Ghost arrives to rescue Zeb shortly after. Callus wishes to take his chances and wait for Imperial rescue rather than be a rebel prisoner, and both he and Zeb part ways with a newfound respect for each other. Returning to a Star Destroyer, Callus is greeted rather coldly, even by Imperial standards, and the episode concludes with him sitting in his quarters in deep thought. Now, that was a very gripping episode for me, or a very, I don't want to say intense, but very gripping and very interesting. And it's one of those episodes that I definitely had to give honorable mention to, is because it's less than about the survival. Zeb and Callus. Now, can you remember, Agent Callus is head of intelligence, Galactic Imperial Intelligence. It's like their version of the CIA, of what our CIA is, or what the British Secret Service is for the UK. That's what Callus is ahead of. He's a spy. He's an assassin, and he's a spy, and he gathers intelligence and stuff like that. And he's gathering intelligence on the rebel movements, and he and Zeb are trapped. And more than just the survivals, more than just the action and survival against the creatures in the cave and getting out of the cave, finding a way to get out of the cave. What was so amazing about that episode is how Callus opened up and admitted that there are things that happen even in the Empire, such as the extermination of the Lasets by the Empire. Because keep in mind, Palpatine has no mercy. He's a psychopath. He's a genocidal psychopath in a lot of ways. But Callus is not. He's a patriot of the Galactic Empire, thinking that almost like in a continuation of their faithfulness or their duties with the Galactic Republic were against separatists during the Clone Wars. But he did not approve of all what the Galactic Empire was doing, including the extermination, the genocide of an entire species of Lasets. So you get Callus opening up to that, and at the end you see them parting ways. Zeb develops it because they had to rely on each other for survival. That was a major thing in that episode, relying on each other, learning how to rely on each other, even though they were major deadly enemies. They were enemies against each other, and in any other situation they would have tried to kill each other or capture one another, one or the other. They had to rely on each other in order to survive and escape that cave on the ice moon, on one of the ice moons of Geonosis. And I think you see the most amazing thing is that even more than Zeb thinking in his mind, having respect for Callus and how he thinks and his purpose, mentioning, trying to reflect on little bit more than Callus is just my enemy. Agent Callus is just my enemy. That Zeb was actually having respect for Callus because he understood him better, and with Callus opening up, with both of them opening up about their thoughts, they looked at each other as less as enemies and more of trying to sympathize at least a little bit with the cause that they're fighting for, with each one is fighting for. And basically after they depart, more so than even, like I was saying, more so than even when with Zeb, what he was contemplating about Callus, what made the episode more impactful is that Callus had such a hatred for the rebels that he wanted to bring them down, that he was leading that secret, that intelligence, that imperial intelligence. He was leading the imperial intelligence with the obsession to bring down the rebels. But yet that got him thinking. He developed a little bit more of a respect for Zeb and understood the rebel cause a little bit better, and that caused him to think. And that affects some of his decisions, or a decision, and I'm not going to go into it because if you haven't seen the episode, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But just recently, the last episode, the new episode that they had on with Callus, it shows you in action how that affected Agent Callus. That encounter he had originally in the Honorable Ones, and shows you the effect that it had, because it did affect his mind and it did affect his conscience about his obsession with the rebels, and also sympathizing with their cause. He couldn't help but to sympathize with their cause a little bit, even though that he was still dedicated to the Galactic Empire, and he was still head of Imperial Intelligence, and he was still hunting down the rebels. That encounter with Zeb on the moon of Geonosis, ice moon of Geonosis, essentially, how shall I say it, essentially affected him in ways that I think that we're going to find out, later on, find out how. And this is a prediction by me. I don't know this for sure, but a prediction by me is, I have a feeling that eventually, if the series of Rebels goes on long enough, that Agent Callus will join the Rebel cause. He will give up. He will finally give up. And if that does happen, that will happen because of the encounter he had with Zeb on that ice moon. So, anyway, moving on, let's talk about the Shroud of Darkness, the episode The Shroud of Darkness, which I'll give an honorable mention to for Season 2. Ezra and Kanan, after facing off with the Inquisitors again, decide it is not safe for them to be around the rebels while they are being targeted by the Empire, and decide to get advice from Ahsoka. On her advice, the three set out for the Jedi Temple on Lothal, will each have a separate vision. Ezra of Master Yoda. Just stopping there, I almost forgot, and I do apologize. In my list of all the characters that bring the saga to full continuity, the full saga, I gave you a list of characters. I forgot Yoda. Yoda appears in Season 2. How can I forget? Foolish me, because I feel stupid, actually, because Yoda is my favorite character. He is my hero. Some people have heroes. Spider-Man might be their hero. Captain America might be their hero. Well, Yoda, Jedi Master Yoda, is my personal favorite hero. He is the character that I want to emulate. And I forgot to put him in that list. But he is also one of the characters that appears in Season 2. But anyway, moving on. Kanan had a vision of the Temple Guard who was testing him, and Ahsoka of Anakin Vader. As the Inquisitors track the group to the temple and force their way inside, Ezra is told by Yoda to, quote, find Malachor, unquote. Kanan is warned by the guard, who reveals himself as the former Grand Inquisitor to beware of Ezra's temptation of the dark side, dubbing Kanan the official rank of Jedi Knight, a rank he was never able to achieve due to the execution of Order 66 and extermination of the Jedi Order. Now keep in mind, that's true, because keep in mind, Kanan was he was a Jedi Padawan, and he remained a Jedi Padawan throughout the series, even while he was training Ezra to become a Jedi. But this Temple Guard, this vision he got, this challenge he had with the Temple Guard, at the end, the Temple Guard finally knighted him as a Jedi Knight. So now he's fully has the rank of Jedi Knight in that, which I thought that was an awesome. That's an awesome. One of the reasons why I liked that episode, along with Ezra talking to Yoda in a vision. But keep in mind, it's not that Kanan wasn't ready to be knighted a Jedi Knight, given the rank of a Jedi Knight. It was because of Order 66 and the extermination of the entire Jedi Order, the reason why. And there was no other Jedi Masters around to knight him or give him the rank of the Jedi Knight, of a Knight. So that's what we're dealing with that. Okay, now we're talking about Ahsoka. During her vision, Ahsoka faces her guilt over not being present during the fall of the Jedi. Because remember that Ahsoka, after being accused of conspiracy and murder, she decided that even though she was acquitted of those crimes, she felt that the Jedi Order betrayed her, and the Jedi Order was not what it once was, and she felt that she couldn't in good conscience be a part of them, so she left the Order. But she faces her guilt over not being present during the fall of the Jedi, while also accepting the fact that her former master, Anakin Skywalker, has become the Sith Lord Darth Vader. The three escape as the shades of the Temple Guards hold off the Inquisitors. Vader and the Empire's forces arrive at the temple as Ahsoka informs Ezra that Malachor is not a person, but a place. And that's going to lead me into my last thing. Now keep in mind, the Grand Inquisitor, the guard, who is used to be the Grand Inquisitor, informed Kanan, beware of Ezra's temptation for the dark side. That's going to play a major role. I'm going to talk about it in the next episode, but it's going to really be a topic for Season 3, not for Season 2. So I'll just touch on it with Season 2, but I'll wait to Season 3 to talk about my theories and opinions on that. For the last one, now we're finally meeting the last one, and of course, the last one, we say the best for the last. Which is actually our season finale, known as Twilight of the Apprentice, and that was an hour long. It was considered part 1, part 2. We consider them in half-hour episodes, but that was the season finale for season 2. Let's go through what the episode is about and talk about it a little bit. Ahsoka, Ezra, and Kanan and Chopper arrive on Malachor. It's a Sith planet, long forbidden to the Jedi, in search of knowledge, discovering a cavern containing a Sith temple amid the site of an ancient battlefield between the Sith and the Jedi, who used cross-guard lightsabers. They soon are attacked by a new Inquisitor, the Eighth Brother. So now we got a third Inquisitor that joins the scene, who is hunting a mysterious hermit calling himself the Old Master. When Ezra encounters the hermit, he reveals himself to be Maul. Used to be Darth Maul, but now it's Maul. Of course, because he's not part of the Sith Order anymore. And offers to help Ezra get into the temple, aiding him in recovering a Sith holocron. When the other Inquisitors arrive and alert Darth Vader of their presence, Ezra convinces the group to work together in spite of Kanan's fears that Maul is corrupting his student, and allowing them to finally kill the three Inquisitors. Yeah, okay, yeah. I apologize for that. Let me read that over again. Ezra convinces the group to work together in spite of Kanan's fears that Maul is corrupting his student, allowing them to finally kill the three Inquisitors. So the three Inquisitors are wiped out at this point. However, Maul soon betrays the group and blinds Kanan with his lightsaber, revealing his true intentions of making Ezra his apprentice. And so basically, keep that in mind. This is what Maul does is he blinds. He's trying to tempt Ezra away from his master Kanan. Kanan or Kanan, if I'm pronouncing it. I don't know how. Okay, I apologize. Yeah, and he's trying to. And what Maul's intentions was is he wants to make him his new apprentice. Because ultimately, what Maul now wants to do is he wants to have his apprentice overthrow Vader and the Emperor, and they become the Sith Lords of the galaxy. So, but let's go on. Let's go on with this. Not straying too far off the topic, which I tend to do. That Maul ends up attacking Kanan and blinding him with his lightsaber. Although sightless, Kanan dons the helmet of a fallen Jedi temple guard and manages to throw Maul from the top of the temple. Ahsoka finally faces Darth Vader, who has cornered Ezra and destroys his lightsaber, and comes to terms with his destiny as Anakin Skywalker as she engages him in a duel, while Kanan and Ezra remove the Sith holocron. Unable to abandon her old master, Ahsoka stays within the crumbling temple and stalls Vader while Ezra, Kanan, and Chopper flee the planet and reunite with the Ghost Crow. Maul also flees Malachor while Vader, who survived the destruction of the temple, walks away as a convoy watches from above. Ahsoka appears briefly post-battle, entering a temple doorway as the Ghost Crew tries to cope with their losses. Ezra continues to meditate on the Sith holocron and finally succeeds in opening it. That's what happens at the end of that episode, which is very dangerous. So, what I see here is, that they've, in the beginning of season 3, which I don't want to talk too much. I want to save that for my review for season 3 after it's finally finished. Tragedy. Kanan was blinded. His eyes were blinded when he was attacked by Maul, and Ahsoka has now disappeared. Now I think that what they're assuming is that she was killed when the temple collapsed, and but it says, but it does show what happened. Actually, what happened was we do see Ahsoka appearing briefly as she entering a temple doorway. Yeah, and so my theory is that I think Ahsoka is still alive. I don't think she is dead, which I'm hoping maybe later this season, or if not this season, next season, that she will return in some way. But the scary thing is what we leave off with, is Ezra now has in his possession a Sith holocron. Because keep in mind, Jedis have their own holocrons and Siths have their own holocrons. But Ezra, instead of having a Jedi holocron, he has a Sith holocron, and he finally opens it. Now keep in mind, the knowledge that you're going to get from a Sith holocron is from the dark side of the Force, which is not good. So Ezra opening that up is not going to be enlightening. It's going to be dangerous. And I don't want to talk about that because that reveals itself more in season 3. But with that being said, I've finished my review, or my overview, of the honorable mention episodes for season 2. You well know that now I'm into Star Wars Rebels with season 2, even though I still feel that season 1 was still a very dull season season 2 revived my interest and it's kept my interest, and that's why I'm sticking with the series and giving a very positive review. And season 3 is very good, but so far too. But I don't want to reveal too much what's happening in that until I get my review sometime later in the year, later next year or so. I'll get around to doing that, but the season has to be over first. But with that, I think it's a good time now to end this video blog. I do want to thank you for watching my video, for I do appreciate it. And if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel to get all the latest updates. I appreciate all my subscribers. I cherish them. But I encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and get all the latest updates. From the next video, I'm going to be diverging on a little detour from my Star Wars and Doctor Who video blogs. And I'm going to be doing one of my all-time favorite horror movie, which is Salem's Lot. And you'll know why when I get to it next month, in the month of November. I'll be doing that. Hopefully, or I'll get to it earlier than I've got to this video, earlier in the month rather than later in the month. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what where my life takes me. But with that, I want to bid everybody a good day, and may the Force be with you.